So if you've clicked on the video, then you probably know that it's the top 10 habits or things to try and help improve your life. First thing I wanted to talk about was journaling. So it's not a very common thing, but I think journaling is fantastic for clarifying how you feel, what you're thinking, and the physical act of writing stuff down on paper. It kind of gives a bit of catharsis. Now, for me, instead of writing things down, I'm journaling by making YouTube videos, so it's a good way to get thoughts and expressions out there. But the actual physical journal, there's a good chance you're not even going to look at the previous day's stuff, but writing the things down is going to help you kind of take a third-person perspective and kind of draw the camera back just so you can see what you're doing with your life and how you feel and what you're actually thinking. If you don't do that, it's just going to keep bouncing around your head and it's going to be very difficult to process these things. And then the next thing I wanted to cover was the benefits of quitting drinking water. Not quitting, but actually drinking water regularly. Now, some of these things sound like they're obvious. It should go without saying, but in reality, sometimes you need people to sit you down and say, okay, this is what you can do to help. But the good thing about drinking water is it's free, it's healthy for you, and there's literally no downsides to it. It's all positives, all benefits. I mean, you could argue that the taste isn't very good, but it's scientifically been proven that if you try a taste you're not familiar with 10 times, then eventually your palate's going to get used to it and you're not even going to taste water anymore. It's just going to be flavorless. Of course, this does depend on where you live, because if you need a filter for tap water or drinking bottled water, whatever it is, the alternative is drinking soda or coffee. Now, I would prefer coffee over soda, but the problem is with soda, it's just going to wreck your teeth. And when you think about it monetarily, over the next 10 years, if you can save money on dentist bills, then you're kind of doing yourself a favor that way as well. So the third thing I wanted to cover was daily exercise. Now, it doesn't have to be hardcore going to the gym for 3 hours a day, and then maybe if you can do some cardio, that's probably the best low impact positive habit to pick up, because if you're getting into the rhythm of doing this every day without thinking, like you wake up, do your stretches, brush your teeth, set the routine in the morning, investing in yourself long term. Over 20 years, if you do regular exercise, if you're drinking water and taking care of your health, it's gonna save you so much hassle. So the next one is planning out your goals. Actually sitting down when you're journaling and thinking about what you want to do. And I'm not just talking about the 5-year plan, the big important things like buying a house or getting married. I'm talking about short-term plans, like writing a to-do list for a day. You've got to think, what can I do in the next 5 minutes, the next 5 hours, the next 5 days, the next 5 weeks, the next 5 months, the next 5 years? And think about and write down each individual thing, because you're going to come to your first thoughts and you're going to write it down, and then you're going to think about it for a little bit longer and realize, wait a minute, the initial knee-jerk reaction is a good idea, but you really have to put some effort into planning what you want to do and going back and reviewing these goals. I mean, if you take New Year's, for example, the New Year's resolutions is always, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and it's going to help me out. And then by the time you hit February, you've forgotten about the whole thing. But if you've written stuff down on Post-it notes, for example, and placed them around your monitor, these things are going to be in your periphery. It's going to be in your view for the whole time, and you're going to be constantly reminded about it. So it gives you something to aim towards, because if you don't have goals and you don't have anything set for the future, then you're kind of aimless, and that can be a very daunting and scary thing. It doesn't matter which direction you're going, having a path to go forward to is going to be bringing you peace of mind. Now, the next thing, it affects people differently, because some people in different cultures where they just don't drink, it's considered like a really negative thing. But unfortunately, in the UK, and I'm assuming if you're in America as well, and Canada, and Mexico, and Australia, and pretty much every country in the world, drinking is part of the culture. It's part of the social fabric that brings people together, and it's seen as culturally unacceptable to not drink. But even cutting back the drinking, like, don't drink at the weekdays, you might have a couple at the weekend, but don't go overboard. And the problem is, a lot of people, they try to match other people's paces when they're out socializing and drinking. And that's the danger, because that can basically, the group of people you're out with, the person that's got the worst habits for drinking, everybody has to kind of follow suit. And you got to have a bit of self-respect. Yeah, you can go out and have a good time, but you don't need to be drinking all the time to do it. It's a social lubricant. You do feel more relaxed when you're drinking, but try it. Just one night when you go out, try not drinking, just as an experiment, to see how you see your friends as they get progressively more drunk through the night and you're stone cold sober. You'll soon realize that it's kind of a different way of looking at the world. So the next thing I was going to talk about was active listening. It's very easy to just talk. Trust me, I'm a person that talks all the time, and it's very difficult for someone like me to stop and actively listen to what people are saying. I mean, there's a nasty habit I used to have when I was younger, where I would kind of finish people's sentences in my head and kind of not listen to what they're saying, because I'm just waiting for my time to get my words in. And I wasn't really reciprocating what was being talked about. It was just a case of, yeah, whatever, skip to the end so I can get on with it. But if you actively listen to people and put yourself in their perspective and have a bit of empathy, understand how they're feeling, what they're saying, and why they're saying it, it can be a great way for you to show that you're actively listening, and people appreciate that. It's a good skill to have. And at the same time, your communication skills are going to benefit without you even saying a word. And a lot of times when someone's giving instructions, or they're being very forthcoming with the story, when you stop, you can just say back to them, oh, so what you're saying is this, and then repeat back what you've interpreted to them, because sometimes what they're saying and what you're hearing are two completely different things. So if you read it back to them in your head, then they can correct you, and they feel like they've been listened to and understood, and it's a beautiful thing. Now, the next thing, budgeting. The next tip I would say is plan out how to spend money. Do a little bit of research, a little bit of homework, and it's going to help you out a long way, because it's very easy to mismanage your funds. And if you're like everybody else in the UK, you'll be on a tight budget at the moment. There's only a few people that are financially stable enough to not worry about the bills. So being able to understand where your money's going, what you can cut out, and what's okay to not cut out as well, because yeah, a lot of people say cut out the streaming, cut out this, and this, and in reality it's not going to have a massive impact. All these little things, they do build up, but you've got to enjoy yourself sometimes, you know. But budgeting, it makes you feel like you're in control. And the one thing I would say is avoid debt as much as possible. A lot of people in America, they've got student loans, and this is like this massive thing where it's constantly getting bigger and bigger, where they can't actively pay off their student loans because the interest is so high. So avoiding that sort of thing in the first place is better than actively getting into debt. I mean, I appreciate that if you're wanting to make a large amount of money, you need to get a bit of debt, you need to get a bit of capital raised, but I'm talking about the smaller scales of things, when you're living just day to day, paycheck to paycheck, and you don't have this extra excess money, and you don't have these grand lofty ambitions of becoming an ex-business mogul. Budgeting your finances, it'll help you feel like you're in control of your own destiny, which sounds a little bit cheesy, but it's true. It's true. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about was trying to define your life-work balance. Don't be playing when you're at work, and don't bring your work home with you when you've finished, because it's just going to sour the mood. And people obsess over work. It's like this hustle culture of I need to work 60 hours, 70 hours a week just to compete, just to get by. No, you don't. There's better things you can do with your life. This goes back to planning your goals and what you want to do. But sitting down and having a conversation with someone, there's only benefits there. There's no downsides to it. And the next thing I wanted to talk about was reading. Now, it sounds like it's a bit of a chore, but you see, if you just go to bed half an hour earlier, crack open a book and do a little bit of reading, it'll help you get to sleep better, and it'll help you unwind. It'll help you get your eyes off the screen. It's a big problem most people have these days, is they're spending like 6 hours, 7, 8 hours on screens. If it's on the phone, on the iPad, on the computer, if they're at work on screens and then they could come home and they're watching TV, it all adds up. And actively reading, it'll make you cancel out a lot of the distractions around you. If you can focus on something, and reading, not audiobooks, but actively looking at the words and reading them, is probably one of the best mental health steps you can take to try and make you feel like you're doing something constructive, but at the same time it's not high effort. Just have the book beside your bed and just say to yourself, okay, I'm going to do 5 pages before I go to sleep. And if you're getting into the swing of it, you'll end up doing 10, 20, 30. But if you don't feel like it, then just do the 5, put it down. Now, the next thing is, leading up to that, is sleeping. Your sleep schedule is so important. It literally defines who you are, what your character is. I mean, if you're unable to get a good night's sleep, then you're just going to feel bad. You're not going to be working well. You're not going to be active and happy and being able to communicate well.